I was homeless because I was in tied accommodation, and I lost my job, which meant I lost my job because of my accommodation. And I was put out onto the street, evicted. And I went to the council, and I was handed, as I was a single female, I was not deemed vulnerable, and I was handed an A4 piece of paper. I lived in Westminster at the time. I'd lived in Zone 1 for 15 years of my life. I was given an A4 piece of paper with some landlords that may have taken me in as being unemployed and on the street at the time. And they were in Zone 6. I had some savings, luckily, so I went into various shelters on a night-to-night basis in the Bayswater area, sharing with people in that I had never met before in large dormitories. I luckily got a job. I luckily got into another hostel where I shared a room with 2 other people, and I got into a 0 hours contract job and built myself up from that, which took 3 years to get into a more permanent job. And I then, I am now again, this was 3 years ago, but I consider myself, under the terms that you were speaking, still homeless. I have not had access to a private toilet for 6 years. This is not acceptable in the United Kingdom in this day and age. But what I say to you, Dame Louise Casey, is this is not about a sleepover in Trafalgar Square with you and your hoi polloi friends reading bedtime stories. This is about building houses. This is about making developers accountable. This is about getting places that are now not being used in central London and made for homeless people. This is about getting the Church of England involved and sharing their money to get places so that people do not have to live in this situation in this country. That's what I say to you. And as I say, this is 6 years, and I have suffered psychological damage as a result of this. I have come through after 6 years, and I have fought my way back up. But I will never, and I am still, there was a report about how psychologically damaging it is for somebody not to have a stable place where they feel safe to rest.
I think, Susan, I'm so sorry that you've had to experience this over the last 6 years.
I'd like to add one more thing before you speak. I was working for the Crown Estate. The Crown Estate. I was working for the Crown Estate and was made unemployed and homeless.
Well, I think because you were in tied accommodation, so then
tied accommodation with no rights whatsoever. Absolutely. Although I had exclusive rights to that property for over 3 years, my human rights were violated, but the courts didn't recognise that.
Well, the sad fact is that the largest reason why people are now becoming homeless is because their landlords evict them. So that's one of the biggest causes of why people are homeless and turning up at local authorities and charities throughout the country. So unfortunately, the type of case that you are, the life that you've led is actually now much more common than it used to be. Can I just say, Susan, the reason we're trying to do this, I don't work for the government anymore. I am not the government anymore. And if I could wave a magic wand, I would persuade this government to invest significantly more in housing.
Exactly.
And to
That's what needs to happen.
Do what you do. But the point is,
not making millions.
Indeed.
Yeah,
the point is, we have to draw a significant amount of attention in the most creative ways we possibly can. Somebody said to me at the weekend, "Oh, Louise, you and your campaigns again, and I said, look, until the job is done, we have to do something about it. We have to basically help people who are homeless, and we have to draw national attention and international attention to the fact that there isn't enough housing being built and there isn't enough care for people who are homeless." And, this government introduced, I think 2 years ago, something called the Homelessness Prevention Act, and it isn't preventing people becoming homeless. So for me, pieces of legislation that go through Parliament are not enough unless it's a cohesive strategy on homelessness.